Hello everyone, and welcome back to ITMaster. Today, we are going to create a premium SVG TextPath scroll animation using gsap and its ScrollTrigger plugin. This effect allows you to bind typography to a custom vector path and animate it smoothly as the user scrolls down the page. It is a fantastic technique to elevate the visual storytelling of any modern web project. We will break down the entire process sequentially, building the HTML structure, placing our raw SVG path, styling it for that perfect premium layout, and finally, adding the animation logic. Let's get started. Main HTML structure. We will start by setting up the basic HTML boilerplate. We are going to import the Attr font from Google Fonts to give our typography a bold, modern look, and create layout sections called spacers to give our page enough height to scroll. Today, we are going to build a premium, scroll-triggered text animation using SVGs and gsap. Before we dive into the complex animation logic, let's lay down the foundational HTML structure. Don't worry, it's short and sweet. Looking at the code on my screen, we start right at the top with our standard doctype declaration. This simply tells the browser, hey, look out, we are using the latest version of HTML. Right below that, we open our HTML tag and set the language attribute to English. This is fantastic for accessibility and helps search engines understand our page better. Now, let's look inside the head section. This is where all the behind-the-scenes prep happens. We have our standard meta tags first. One ensures our character encoding supports pretty much any symbol or text character out there, while the viewport meta tag makes sure our animation scales beautifully and looks crisp, whether your user is on a massive desktop monitor or a smartphone. Right after that, we give our page a descriptive title. This is exactly what will show up on the browser tab. Next up, we need a really bold, impactful font for our text animation to look premium. To do that, we are connecting to Google Fonts. We pre-connect to their servers to speed things up, and then we grab the Attr font with a font weight of 900. That's going to give us a nice, heavy, cinematic look for our scrolling text. Let's jump into the body tag, which holds everything the user actually sees. Because this is a scroll-driven animation, we need room to actually scroll. To handle that, I've created a div with the class spacer that says scroll down to see magic. We will style this with CSS later to give it a lot of physical height. Right below that is our centerpiece, a div with the class animation container. Right now it's empty, but this is the exact sandbox where we will embed our SVG graphics and our text path later in the tutorial. Finally, we have one last spacer class at the bottom that says, end of tutorial, just to give our animation plenty of room to finish up as the user reaches the end of the page. And that's it for our skeleton. Clean, organized, and ready for some styling. Defining the SVG code and text path. Now, inside the .animation container, we will embed our vector SVG markup. The text path mechanism relies on two essential elements, a path, with a specific ID attribute that defines our mathematical curve, and a text tag enclosing a text path component. By setting the ref attribute to match our path's ID, the text automatically aligns itself perfectly along that vector shape. Alright, now that we have our basic page structure ready, let's look at the exciting part, the actual SVG code that we're placing inside our animation container. This is where our text path is born. If you look inside the animation container div, we've added an SVG element. Think of the SVG as a digital canvas. We've given it a viewBox of 1200 by 600, which defines our working coordinate system, and we've set the fill to none so it starts completely transparent. Now, look at the first child of the SVG, the path tag with the ID of text track. This is the invisible guide rails for our text. The magical part here is the D attribute, which stands for data. This string of numbers and letters, like the M4 move to and C4 cubic Bezier curve, draws a smooth, flowing, wavy line across our 1200 pixel canvas. We've given it a tiny stroke width just so we know it's there, but its main job isn't to look pretty, its job is to act as a road. Right below the path, we have our text tag. We're styling the text directly here, giving it a font size of 36, coloring it white, making it super bold with a font weight of 900, and adding some nice letter spacing to make it look premium. But notice what's nested inside that text tag. It's a TextPath element with the ID of curved text. This is the secret sauce. By using the href attribute and pointing it to #texttrack, we are telling the browser, hey, don't lay this text out in a straight, boring line. Glue it directly onto that wavy path we just drew above. We also set the start offset to 0%, which means the text will start right at the very beginning of our curve. Inside that text path is our actual phrase, crafting premium digital experiences with GSAP. Later on, when we bring in GSAP, we are going to animate that start offset percentage, making the text effortlessly slide along this custom curve as the user scrolls. Now that our text is glued to its path, let's move on to the CSS styling to position this canvas perfectly on the screen. Styling the layout, CSS. Right now, the elements are unstyled and won't align correctly in the center of the viewport. Let's add the CSS styles inside the head of our document. This styling turns our background dark, targets our layout containers, ensures the SVG scales cleanly, and gives the vector path a clean, dotted line appearance. Now that we have our markup and SVG set up, let's look at the CSS styles that bring the layout together and prep our environment for the animation. First, we target the body tag to set the overall mood. We give it a sleek, dark background color using a deep charcoal hex code, color the default text white, and apply that beautiful bold Attr font we imported earlier. We also reset the margin to 0 to get rid of default browser spacing, and critically, we add overflow x hidden. This prevents any ugly horizontal scroll bars from popping up if our animated text accidentally slides past the edges of the screen. Next up, remember those spacer divs we made to give us room to scroll? We style them here using a height of 100 VH. This stands for viewport height, meaning each spacer will perfectly take up 100% of the user's screen height. We use Flexbox, with Display Flex, Justify Content Center, and Align Item Center, to perfectly push the text right into the middle of that giant block. We also tint the text color a subtle, dark gray, capitalize it, and add some letter spacing so it sits quietly in the background without distracting from our main show. Moving on to the animation container, which holds our SVG. Just like the spacers, we give it a height of 100 VH and use Flexbox to center everything perfectly. This ensures that when the user scrolls to this section, the SVG canvas sits squarely in the middle of their viewport. For the SVG itself, we make it highly responsive. By setting the width to 95% and the max width to 1200 px, it will dynamically scale down on smaller mobile screens but won't stretch out and look distorted on massive desktop displays. Setting the height to auto keeps the original 1200 by 600 proportions perfectly intact. Finally, let's look at how we style our #texttrack, the invisible path we drew earlier. We change its stroke color to a very faint gray and add a stroke dasarray of 4. This turns our solid vector line into a clean, minimal dashed line. It looks beautiful, almost like a technical blueprint or a guiding track, giving the user a subtle hint of the wavy roller coaster path our text is about to ride. With our styling locked in, everything looks incredibly polished and is positioned exactly where it needs to be. Next up, we are going to write the JavaScript and bring this entire project to life using GSAP. Writing the GSAP and ScrollTrigger script. With our visual layout perfectly centered and styled, the final step is to make it interactive. We will load the GSAP core library along with the ScrollTrigger plugin. Include these CDN links right before your closing /body tag, followed by our custom animation script. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the JavaScript that ties everything together and creates that premium scroll magic using GSAP. Before we write any animation code, we first need to bring in the tools. At the very top, we use two script tags to import the libraries from a CDN. The first script pulls in the core GSAP library, which handles all the heavy lifting for animations. Right below it, we pull in the ScrollTrigger plugin, which is the specific extension that lets us hook our animations directly to the user's scroll bar. Inside our custom script tag, our very first line of code is gsap.registerPlugin, ScrollTrigger. Think of this as introducing the core GSAP framework to its ScrollTrigger plugin, essentially saying, "Hey GSAP, get ready, because we are going to use scroll-driven animations today." Next, we create our actual animation using sap.to. This method tells GSAP to animate a property from its current state to a new destination. We pass it our target selector, which is #curveText, the ID of our SVG TextPath element. Inside the configuration object, we use the Attr property. This is a brilliant feature in GSAP that lets us target raw HTML or SVG attributes directly. We are telling it to change the start offset attribute to 100%. Remember, in our SVG, we initialized it at 0%. Moving it to 100% means the text is going to slide completely from the beginning of our wavy track all the way to the very end. We also set the ease to none. By default, animations like to start slow, speed up, and slow down at the end. But for scroll-triggered effects, we want a completely linear, one-to-one movement so it feels perfectly attached to the user's hand on the mouse wheel. Finally, we configure the ScrollTrigger object itself. This defines the rules of engagement. We set the trigger to .animationContainer. This tells the browser to start watching for scroll positioning specifically when this container enters the screen. The start and end properties define our animation window. Top center means the animation kicks off the exact moment the top of our container hits the center of the user's viewport. It finishes at bottom center, which is when the bottom of our container leaves the center of the screen. The secret sauce that makes this look incredibly high-end is scrub. 1. Instead of just triggering the animation to play like a video, scrubbing links the timeline directly to the scroll bar. If you scroll down 50%, the text moves 50%. By setting it to the number 1 instead of true, we add a slight catch-up delay. This means if the user scrolls quickly and stops, the text smoothly glides to a stop over the course of 1 second, giving it a beautifully fluid, premium weight. Lastly, we leave markers set to false. If you ever want to debug and physically see the start and end lines on your screen while building, you can flip this to true, but for production, we keep it off. And there you have it. With just a few lines of GSAP, you've built a highly responsive, cinematic, scroll-driven TextPath animation. Save your file, open it in your browser, and watch the magic happen as you scroll. Key parameters explained. Attr. Start offset, 100%. This targets the native XML attribute of our text path, pushing the starting point of the text seamlessly from $0 to $100 along the length of the vector curve. Ease, none. This ensures a linear speed curve, making the text motion link directly and evenly to your scrolling speed. Scrub, 1. This creates a smooth catch-up delay of 1 second when scrolling, creating a premium fluid movement instead of abrupt stops. And that is how you build a professional, premium text path animation tied directly to the user's scroll depth. By loading your structure, styling it precisely, and letting GSAP handle the heavy lifting, you can add incredible interactive touches to any web UI design. If you found this breakdown helpful, please make sure to hit the like button, leave your questions or feedback in the comments section below, and subscribe to ITMaster for more advanced web development tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.